Hello, future space explorers, and welcome to the very first annual National Space Day brought to you by Space Workforce 2030, where we are launching dreams and exploring futures. We're so excited to be with you here today to involve you in a discussion about all things space. If you weren't a space nerd before, I can bet you will be after this.
National Space Day is an extraordinary day created to celebrate the past, the present, and the future of space exploration. It's a great opportunity for people around the world to come together and celebrate all that space has to offer.
Yeah, we are going to launch into the wonders of space exploration, from how space is affecting us here on Earth, how we even get to space, why we're going back to the moon, and what it's going to take to get us to Mars and beyond.
Today, you'll be hearing from space industry leaders, including real-life scientists, aerospace engineers, and even a few astronauts. But don't get me wrong, those are not the only jobs available in the space industry. To build our future in space, we need artists, architects, entrepreneurs, pretty much every career you can think of. Getting to space is not an easy job, and we'll need to use the skills and expertise in each and every one of you to help us get there.
Yeah, that's right. There's plenty of space for you in space. Do you get it?
I got it.
You get it? Great. Okay. Today is a day of learning and appreciation for the incredible progress we've made in discovering the mysteries of the universe. So get ready for liftoff, because we're about to shoot for the stars.
Our journey begins with a look back at the brave souls who first ventured into the unknown realms of outer space. Thanks to the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, we've been given that opportunity. Let's check out a brief history of space from America's space agency.
We want to find out what's out there. We want to be able to, expand our horizons. I think that truly is built into the human spirit. We're always wondering, what's next? How much farther can we go?
The Mercury astronauts, when they get introduced, you immediately coalesce as sort of the heroes. The press conference that NASA had goes crazy, and the astronauts become instant celebrities. They sort of look like knights in armor in some ways, going out there to defend the honor of the United States.
3, 2, 1, 0, start.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Ignition sequence start. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The landing to me was a great celebration. We had won the race. The nation was almost euphoric.
The knowledge that we gain about the origin and the evolution of the moon is one of these days going to help us right here on Earth. Of course, it's only one area, but I believe it's an important area, and I guess I'm betting a lot on it.
12 humans walked on the surface of the moon, which is a stunning achievement, and we are still the only country ever to have done that. We're going to go back to the moon, and we're going to take what we learned there, and we're going to go to Mars.
To get to Mars, it's about a 6-month journey. And as an operator, I would be really, really happy if we could test out our operations and our equipment in our backyard. The moon's only 3 days away. The moon is the next step.
So the space station, it's more than 1 million pounds. It's as big as 2 football fields. You are not going to bring that up in one single lift. So we had to bring up the space station in parts and assemble it. The space shuttle was instrumental to bringing up at least the American side of that. It was more than 40 missions over about 13 years to assemble all those parts of the space station.
Orion, our state-of-the-art spacecraft, is designed to take crews into deep space, and then once their work is done, to safely bring them back home.
And we want to see what's out there. We want to see how it works. We want to go explore. There's always this desire to learn more, to satisfy that inquisitive nature. Let's go do it.
Are you a space nerd yet? Okay, well, let's keep going and then see what you think. Our journey to the moon was an incredible moment in history, and it took thousands upon thousands of brilliant men and women to get us there. And sometimes, in movies and TV, we tend to only see men working as scientists and engineers, but in reality, women were instrumental to the achievements we made in space. Let's take a moment appreciating the role of women in space.
Thousands of us have been bold in our pursuit of knowledge, exploration, and discovery, both in the spotlight and behind the scenes. And every day, we're pushing the envelope further. We conducted the first all-women spacewalk, broke records for the longest single spaceflight by a woman, and added 6 women to our astronaut corps. Behind the scenes, we made other accomplishments, like piloting observatories, leading missions to places we've only dreamed of, and so much more.
Those women have inspired countless kids to pursue STEM degrees and encourage women like myself who studied mechanical and aerospace engineering to keep pushing the envelope. It's just so cool to see the impact that they've had on future space leaders.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But, Emily, some people want to know, what's the point of going to space? I mean, we have everything we need down here on Earth. Why are we in the rush to get out of here?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Jordan. Space isn't just a vast void beyond our reach. It plays a crucial role to us down here on Earth. From outer space, we've learned so much about our precious planet and how we can work together to preserve it.
That's right. And Blue Origin, an American aerospace manufacturer and launch service provider, has been instrumental in finding new ways to utilize space's resources. Let's check out some of the work that they've been up to lately.
We're going to build a road to space. What we know is that there are certain gates we have to go through, certain prerequisites. If we don't do these, we will never get there.
First, we have to radically lower the cost of access to space.
This means reusable rockets. We need to get really, really good at using rockets over and over again.
Once you have low-cost access to space, the second gate becomes actually accessing the resources of the solar system.
Space resources. The moon is where we'll learn to do all this.
The moon has a vast quantity of resources.
And if we can learn to harness those resources, we can travel without stressing the Earth.
And last, one of the things that we have to do is inspire those future generations.
We have to inspire the next generation to carry this torch for the benefit of Earth.
For the benefit of Earth.
That really puts into perspective the importance of taking care of our planet and developing ways to preserve it. Climate change is a topic you've probably heard of before. Let's hear from one of our student-submitted questions regarding this topic.
Hi, I'm Gia and I live in California. I worry about global warming and what it will mean when I'm a grown-up. Do space companies do anything to fight climate change?
Hello, I'm Chirag Parikh, the Executive Secretary of the National Space Council, and I work for Vice President Kamala Harris, who chairs the National Space Council. Now, our responsibility is to develop and oversee our nation's space policies across all sectors like civil, such as NASA, national security, such as the Department of Defense, and our vast commercial space enterprise and our international partnerships. Combating the climate crisis is a top priority for our nation, and space plays a critical role in this effort. As I speak right now, there are hundreds of satellites orbiting the Earth, gathering information about our land, our oceans, and our atmosphere. We call this information Earth observation data. Now, these satellites are important because they monitor the Earth and climate of the Earth, which allows us to know that it's getting hotter. It allows us to monitor the environment so we can see changes to the land, to the sea, to the atmosphere, and even our polar ice caps over a period of time. And it allows us to map the Earth so we know where things are, like rivers, mountains, and vegetation. And with these Earth observation satellites, we monitor the whole Earth, as our climate is a globally interconnected ecosystem. And we can see also how the Earth is changing over months, days, years, and even decades. And these satellites mostly see what our eyes can see, being able to monitor deforestation, urbanization, crops, and our polar ice caps. However, we have other satellites that allow us to see things that our eyes can't even see, things that affect our climate change. For instance, satellites in space allow us to see the emissions of carbon and methane gases. Carbon and methane are leading contributors to why the Earth is warming up so rapidly. Our eyes can't see carbon and methane, but these satellites detect these gases. They help us provide insight into who's emitting them, how much is being emitted, and where these emissions are taking place. And the best part is that we're doing this through investments into and partnerships with our commercial companies and international space agencies who are operating their own Earth observation satellites. Together, we're taking Earth observation data and using science, math, artificial intelligence, data science, and computer programming to understand the effects on our planets and create plans on how to combat the climate crisis. So while you can pursue careers in building and operating these satellites, you can also pursue careers in analyzing the data and being the eyes and ears of our living planet. There are endless opportunities to provide contributions to preserving this beautiful planet using what's here on Earth and what's in space. And our nation and our world needs you. Thank you.
As you can see, space has so much to offer us in the long term. The vision is to utilize space to help us protect and preserve Earth's resources in a way that is sustainable, safe, and efficient. But in the short term, space is helping us each and every day in countless ways. For example, who here has a cell phone? And what are some of the things that you do on your cell phone? Well, I'm sure some of us might call our parents or our grandparents just to say hello. Some of us might check social media or emails, and I can guess that most of us use GPS navigation to help us get around. All of those things use technology in space, satellites in particular. While we can't always see them, there are thousands of satellites floating around in space helping us with daily tasks. There are remote sensing satellites, which collect data from energy reflected or emitted from the Earth. Weather satellites that provide the forecast. Positioning, navigation, and timing satellites such as GPS. And communication satellites. The main difference is some of these satellites collect information, while the last transmits information.
It's kind of mind-blowing how much we rely on the technology of satellites in our everyday lives. Let's hear from one of the student-submitted questions about satellites.
Hi, my name is Mary Grace, and I live in Colorado. And I want to know, what details can satellites see from space? Can they see me from space? Also, why do satellites look down on Earth when we already know about Earth?
That's a great question. I'm Chris Scalise, the director of the National Reconnaissance Office. Can you be seen from space? Well, satellites look down on the Earth and they can see a lot of things. They can see trees, they can see buildings, but they can't see you directly. But we want to go off and look at things that can inform us about what's happening on our planet, because it's very important to know what people are doing, how the planet is changing. So we look in various different kinds of wavelengths. So we can see a lot of different colors. We can see heat. We can also listen. And that gives us a lot of information about what is happening on our planet. Well, a lot of things happen on the Earth, and the Earth is changing. Either people are changing, and they're moving in different ways. We have ships that move on the ocean. We have airplanes and cars all moving around our planet. We also have weather. We want to know what's going on with the weather. We want to know what's going on in the future with our planet. So we want to understand what's happening today and how does that change what may happen sometime in the future when you grow older.
Space truly is the ultimate frontier of discovery and innovation. Its daily impact on humanity is essential to our growth and sustainability as inhabitants of this precious planet. Our partners over at Astrana Space Technologies are working diligently to bring the benefits of satellite technology across the globe. Let's check out some of the work that they're doing in the Philippines.
We took a trip to the Philippines to meet with and document the lives of our end users for our Philippines satellite we're launching in partnership with Orbitz. If you're watching this video, you probably have great internet, but there are another 4 billion people, half of the world, that don't have fast internet or any at all. I can't imagine what life without the internet would be like, so for me, getting to go and meet with and tell the stories of people who don't have any connectivity has been really amazing and eye-opening. One of the first places we went in the Philippines was the Cagayan Manyan School in Oriental Mindoro, a large island where many residents lack connectivity. After talking for a bit with Principal Villafuerte, he gave us a tour of the school, and we discovered something that shocked us. They have a brand new computer lab so they can teach students how to work with computers, but they have no way to connect this computer lab to the internet. It's completely offline. What struck us about the students at the school, aside from their passion and talent for basketball, was how passionate they were about their studies. We met with future doctors, engineers, kids that will clearly grow up and change the world, but right now, their education is completely unconnected from the internet. At Astranis, we see the internet as a two-way street. We're excited for the unconnected to get connected and share their ideas, stories, and content with the rest of the world.
That's incredible work that they're doing. For communities across the globe to get connected to the internet, it's going to not only take technical expertise, but it's also going to require creative skills and ingenuity. Let's hear another student question about mixing art and space.
My name is Saish and I live in Ohio. My question is, I really love to draw and I want to be an artist someday. I also think space is really amazing. What kind of job could I do with art and space?
Hi, my name is Ellen Stofan. I'm the Undersecretary for Science and Research at the Smithsonian Institution and the former chief scientist of NASA. I love this question, and absolutely yes. If you think about it from a practical point of view, NASA needs all kinds of people, from accountants to lawyers, and obviously scientists and engineers. But we also need artists, because it's designers who really start with that first conception of what is a spacesuit going to look like? What is a moon base or a base on Mars going to look like? What's our next rocket going to look like? All those things come out of design, which is a big part of art. So we need space designers to help us figure out how we're going to get all the equipment we need, the places we're going to live on other planets. All that comes out of art. The other thing I would say is, and you may not know this, but artists were a big way that during the Apollo program in the 1960s, NASA communicated with the public. They actually brought in all the leading artists of the 1960s to document what was happening with sending humans to the moon for the first time. The National Air and Space Museum of the Smithsonian has an amazing collection of these paintings, and I really urge you to go online and look at them. But what that really showed me, going and looking at those paintings, was how important art is to inspire us about space, to realize all the places that humans will someday go, to realize how we do it, to interpret and tell the story of the wonders of the universe, the wonders of our solar system, and the amazing, amazing stories of exploration. Scientists and engineers are not so good at that. Artists are wonderful at it. So whether you stick to being a pure artist or you come and work at a space agency someday as a designer, art and space absolutely belong together.
I love that there's an opportunity to find or create a career that is a happy mix of all of your passions. One vital organization that we haven't mentioned yet is our newest U.S. military sector, the United States Space Force. It's a space service branch of the United States Armed Forces. Let's hear a student-submitted question about the USSF.
Hi, I'm Roman, and I live in Marine. And my question is, what does the Space Force do? Will we ever have battles and jets in space and Star Wars?
Hey, thanks so much. Those are great questions. My name's Sean Bratton. I'm a 3-star general working for the Space Force right here in the Pentagon. And what does the Space Force do? The Space Force does so many things. We keep track of all the objects in space, and we provide communications and navigation signals to the military forces all around the world. And in fact, we provide the GPS signal to you and your parents. So the next time you're driving in your car and hearing that voice that's telling them where to go, know that that is coming from the Space Force. Now, will we fly spacecraft in space and have battles? Well, I'll tell you, I like all those science fiction movies just like you guys do, and I sure hope that we're gonna have Guardians in space one day. In fact, this August, a Guardian for the first time is gonna launch into space on a NASA rocket. So make sure you keep your eyes out for that.
That's very cool. So we've talked about going to the moon, but what about space exploration beyond the moon? Let's take a look at NASA's perspective.
Going to Mars is not Star Trek. It's not go where no man has gone before, as they say. It's really all about letting our planetary scientists be the pioneers, be the group that scouts the future and looks at resources that we can use on the planet. What are the things they need to know to be able to safely land, live, and return from Mars?
Sending humans to Mars will be a giant leap for humanity. It's not as simple as sending people off in a rocket. We'll need cutting-edge technology, years of planning, and the determination to overcome countless challenges along the way. Do you have what it takes to join the quest to explore the Red Planet? Maxar Space Technologies is one of the companies helping us pave the road to Mars. They interviewed a former astronaut about his perspective on humans reaching Mars. Let's take a look.
People want to know, when are we going back to the moon? When are we going to go to Mars? And I always tell them, when we're ready. I'm Robert Kerbine, former astronaut, and I just can't wait until somebody puts a boot print on Mars. The last time people were on the moon was in 1972 during the Apollo 17 mission. Now we're in the Artemis era, where we're going back to the moon and even further to Mars. And so we're going to actually establish a presence in lunar orbit with NASA's Gateway, the gateway not only to allow people to visit the lunar surface, but also travel further into deep space.
Okay, I just want to check in real quick. Are we a space nerd yet? Okay, we'll keep going. Now, the cool thing is, space allows us to explore, extract resources, and examine what a life outside of Earth might look like. Here on Earth, we have developed ways to test our methods, processes, and equipment for Mars. There are a few places with the terrain and components equipped for giving us a Mars-like experience. Do you have any guesses where some of those places might be? Let's check out how the Aerospace Corporation is testing for missions to Mars down here on Earth in Utah.
I'm here today to complete a 2-week mission to the Mars Desert Research Station with the Aerospace Corporation, the first all-aerospace analog team that has come out here to complete Mars-like experiments and to do a study of how the crew would interact in a Mars-like environment. You can't just walk outside anytime that you want. You have to don a spacesuit, you have to spend time in an airlock for depressurization before you can go outside, and you have to have a reason to go outside.
We understand that the spacesuits of the future are going to have augmented reality, and there needs to be development of softwares that are unique, that are going to really change the way that science is done in space. If I'm in a real spacesuit, and I've got cameras on the spacesuit, I'm going to be able to take video, which I can extract still images from, frame by frame. I can create a 3D image with those stills. And by the time that we're leaving the simulation, I have a 3D model that is calibrated to the area. And we've shown how we can do it with photogrammetry models.
When you go on a Mars mission, we really need to be prepared before we go. And I think that that really shows that analogs can bring a lot of knowledge to the knowledge base and add to just the overall preparations that we would make to go on an actual planetary mission.
Okay, I had no idea we were training for Mars in parts of Utah. That is so cool. With all this talk of other planets, we have to talk about the possibility of life on those other planets, right?
Yes, of course. So let's jump to a question from another one of our students.
Hi, my name is Caden, and I'm from Maryland. My question is there another planet like Earth? And are there aliens?
I'm Lori Leshin, director of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory here in Pasadena, California. I love this question because it's about the work that we do each and every day here at JPL. We are searching for Earth-like planets around other stars, and we're searching for life elsewhere. Earth that you could call aliens, right? Right now, the answer is we haven't really found evidence of either, but that's just because it's really hard to look. I truly believe we will find evidence of both in your lifetimes. So let's start by talking about Earth-like planets. The hard part about finding Earth-like planets around other stars is that stars are really big and bright, and planets, even though our Earth feels huge, compared to a star, Earth-like planets are really tiny and they're really dim. So it's like you're blinded by the starlight and you can't see the little planet. But we're working on technology here at JPL that is going to allow us to block out the starlight and see those Earth-like planets. So stay tuned because we will detect Earth-like planets elsewhere in the coming years, decades. On the aliens question, we're looking for life. Right now, all we know about is life on Earth, but it's great to think about life elsewhere. If you look at the history of life on Earth, it was really simple, little things like bacteria and algae in your pool for most of Earth's history. So that's really the kind of life that we're looking for on places like Mars and on Jupiter's moons like Europa. And again, we haven't found it yet, but I really think we will. So thanks again for a great question.
Wouldn't it just be so cool to see the first signs of life on other planets during your lifetime? We'll have to stay tuned for that one. Now, for us to get to Mars, or really anywhere out of our planet, we're gonna need a rocket. So let's hear from another student with a question about rockets.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I live in Washington. My question is, how do rockets launch when they're really, really heavy?
Hi, my name is Gwen Shotwell. I'm president of a company called SpaceX, and that's a fantastic question, especially for today. How hard is it to launch a rocket when it's really heavy? So, without going into all the details on rocket science, we can blame or credit a lot of what we do in rocketry to Sir Isaac Newton. And so when it comes to rockets, it's his 3 laws of motion. And the first is any object that's at rest will stay at rest unless there is an unbalanced force applied. That's the first part of flying a rocket. You need to take this very heavy, millions of pounds of structure and propellant and get it lifted out of gravity into space. So in order to lift this very heavy thing, you need to add a force. And the force for rockets is called thrust. And thrust is generated by accelerating or pushing propellant from inside the rocket out the back end of the rocket. The force needs to be greater than gravity. And so the rocket lifts off Earth and flies into space. The heavier the rocket is, the more force or thrust you need to overcome gravity. And so you need a large rocket with a lot of propellants, with an engine designed specifically to get that rocket off of planet Earth, out of the gravity of Earth, and into space. Now, it's not just about going up. You don't always just go up. In fact, you go up and then you actually have to do what's called a gravity turn. You need to turn sideways and basically circle the Earth. And you need to do that with enough force to be able to overcome gravity. Think about rockets flying like a balloon flies around. So you blow up a balloon, and when you let it go, the air basically blows out in a direction and the balloon flies in the opposite direction. That's a really simple example of Newton's 3rd law of motion. And so if you combine those, the first, the 3rd law, a little bit of the 2nd law, you end up with a rocket leaving planet Earth, escaping gravity, and then staying in orbit because of the amount of energy that you put in.
That is so cool. I can tell you for sure that what our partners are doing is actually rocket science. It's all about harnessing the power of physics, from the fiery blast-off to the graceful stages of separation. Rocket launches are a breathtaking display of science and engineering in action. Let's jump to a question from another one of our students.
Hi, I'm Declan. I live in Texas. My question is, what's the hardest math problem a rocket scientist has to do, and how long do they study to learn how to do problems like that?
Hello everyone, and happy National Space Day. My name is Daniel Hastings. I'm a professor of aeronautics and astronautics in the MIT Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics. So rocket scientists are in the business of getting payloads into space, typically satellites, as well, of course, of doing things in space. So what a rocket scientist has to do is calculate the trajectory to get from wherever it is you're taking off from up to wherever it is you want the payload, typically a satellite, to be deposited in space. So that involves many things. It actually matters where you launch from because of the rotation of the Earth. They have to calculate the effects of the winds aloft as the rocket actually goes up and the pressure the air exerts on the rocket body as it cuts through the atmosphere at high speed. It's also important to understand where it is that the first stage, and rockets are typically built in stages, is dropped off, and where it is that the second stage will actually ignite. And all of those things go into a complex set of calculations to make sure the rocket does it safely as possible, and preserving, of course, the payload. This is done by complex computer codes. The computer codes are written and operated by individuals who typically have at least a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering, often a master's degree in aerospace engineering. So they will have studied science and mathematics in high school, gone on to college to study science and engineering and mathematics in college for 4 years, and then often, not always, done a master's degree for another 1 or 2 years after that. So they'll be typically 22 to 24 years old when they are able to do these kind of calculations.
Now that's rocket science for you. A rocket launch requires hundreds of people working together for one shared mission. Let's take a look at what the day of a rocket launch looks like for our partners at United Launch Alliance in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
I am Dylan Rice, Systems Test Engineer and Launch Conductor for United Launch Alliance. The launch conductor is most visible on launch day. We are overall responsible for execution of the countdown, ensuring that the team is ready to go. Our launch team is divided up into several smaller teams. There's one team that's focused on the booster. There's another team that is focused on the second stage. We have a third team that's focused on the electrical and avionics systems. The primary role of the launch conductor is just to manage all of those teams and make sure that everybody is ready when the launch window opens. Launch day starts pretty early in the morning. We're usually getting started about 10 hours prior to launch. There are teams that are out at the launch pad doing the final securing on the launch pad. That might be associated with our propellant storage farms or our environmental control systems. There's a lot of work that goes into just the general preparation, final preparation of the pad for a launch. Once we have the launch pad secured and all of our systems are ready to initiate tanking, we clear the launch pad and we start to transfer propellant from the large storage tanks onto the launch vehicle. We also do things like pressurize our reaction control system. When we load helium on the vehicle, we use helium as a pressurant. All those items are considered hazardous, and we can't do that with people out at the pad. Once the vehicle is loaded and ready, then we perform our final terminal count and launch.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Hi, I'm Maya and I live in California. Can I work in the space industry even if I'm not the best in my class at math?
Hi, I'm Tim Ellis. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Relativity Space. And if you want to work in the space industry, there's lots of different jobs, working on rockets, working on satellites, but there's many more jobs besides just engineering. There's project management, there's business, there's a lot of creativity that goes into a team that is building rockets and making it successful. And it is a whole team effort. So for me, I even did focus on math and science in school, but I also spent more of my personal time and energy in writing and creativity. So growing up, I wrote poetry and a novel and was really into movies. And that honestly is what drove my passion for ultimately getting into rockets and into space, because I thought really it was just a creative field and one that had hard problems to solve, but also really big dreams and really big aspirations. So it is something that I definitely want to encourage you. You do not have to take the linear path. I thought I was going to go to school, graduate, and be a screenwriter. I ended up working in rockets. So certainly you can explore your dreams, and the biggest thing is just to stay curious, work hard, study, and realize that with growth mindset, you can always change, and you can always change your career aspirations and shoot for the stars.
I've learned that the most essential skill to do well in STEM is simply passion and perseverance. The ability to just pursue things you're interested in, even if you're not the best at it at first. When I was in 4th grade, I failed the Smart Kid test. This was the test to get into the accelerated program at school. And you know why? It was because I didn't know the difference between a microscope and a telescope. But fast forward a few years, and I'm graduating from MIT with a master's degree in aeronautics and astronautics. One experience I've had that always makes me laugh is my ride on the Vomit Comet. It's a reduced gravity aircraft that allows you to experience the effects of weightlessness for a few moments. I was so nervous that I was gonna get sick and not enjoy it, but once we got up there, I eventually got my air legs, and I'm telling you, it was the best experience of my life. And this leads us perfectly into another question from one of our students.
Hi, my name is Gray, and my question is, what's the coolest job in the space industry that's not an astronaut? I get car sick, so I don't think space travel's for me.
Well, I'm Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy, and I'm happy to tell you that being car sick is not the same thing as space adaptation sickness. So don't give up hope yet. Having said that, I also know there's a lot of really cool space jobs right here on Earth. I personally love all the aspects of operations. So whether you're working to drive a rover on another planet, or one of the jobs that I think is amazing is to be a flight director for human spaceflight. So they have to have all the same knowledge of the spacecraft. They have to integrate a lot more data. They get a lot more data than the astronauts actually see on orbit. They also have to be able to respond immediately in an emergency, provide support, information. They do all the planning for the key activities that astronauts do. In reality, our flight directors and flight controllers are part of the astronaut crew. They're just the part that's on the ground. I think that's a pretty cool job.
There are so many interesting jobs in the space industry. One type of job that involves astronomers, scientists, and researchers is studying the sun. Now, there's a particular cosmic event that happens every so often that helps with this research. Do you know what I'm talking about, Jordan?
Is it solar eclipses?
Yes, exactly. That's right. So imagine standing outside on a bright sunny day when suddenly the sky darkens and the sun disappears. What's happening? It's a solar eclipse, one of nature's most spectacular shows.
When you experience an eclipse, you feel that connection with space.
Oh my gosh!
Look at the ray structure!
The universe is out there and it's affecting us. We are in space.
And here it comes, there's the diamond ring. And that is the most spectacular sight.
If you haven't seen it, you haven't seen anything.
A solar eclipse happens when the moon moves between the sun and the earth, casting a shadow on our planet. But why doesn't this happen more often? Well, the moon's orbit is slightly tilted, so it only happens when the sun, moon, and earth all line up just perfectly. This is when we get to witness this rare cosmic event. During a total solar eclipse, the moon completely covers the sun, revealing its outer atmosphere called the solar corona, which is normally hidden by the sun's bright light. A solar eclipse is incredibly important for scientists and astronomers because it allows them to study the sun's corona and learn more about its structure and behavior. This data will help us understand the sun's influence on Earth's climate, space weather, and even satellite communications. So, next time you witness a solar eclipse, remember that you're not just seeing a spectacular, awe-inspiring sight, but you're also contributing to our understanding of the universe.
It's amazing how much we can learn from an event like this. Remember, there's always ways to discover more about the universe, so keep dreaming big and reaching for the stars.
Yeah, what we really want to leave you with here today is the understanding that a future in the space industry is available to you. There are opportunities, no matter how old or young you are, to get involved in space. Whether it's through live events in your communities or virtual activities, there is no shortage of space in the space industry. You still get it?
Yep, I still get it. Let's take a look at how some of the young minds across the country are getting involved in their communities.
Hi, my name is Marissa Valencia, and I'm from Brea, California. In 3rd grade, I joined the Columbia Memorial Space Center Girls in STEM Club, and it allowed me to learn everything about space that I could possibly dream about. In 4th grade, I was granted the opportunity to visit NASA Johnson Space Camp in Alabama to train like a real astronaut. I was able to launch model rockets, perform missions, fix a satellite, and just really experience what it was like to be an astronaut. I'm now in 11th grade, and I've joined NASA's Space Station Ambassador Program, and I'm able to share my love of space with the community around me. I've now been visiting my community by speaking to local Girl Scout troops and elementary schools, just sharing all the possibilities in the space industry, and it's so rewarding to see the spark in these young girls' eyes, just knowing all that they can do within the space industry. One day I hope to become an astronaut, performing my own experiments on the International Space Station and walk on the moon. Every time we get a notification that the International Space Station is flying above our house, my family, I make sure to rush them out of the house to go watch it. And we always wave up saying hi, even if the astronauts can't see us. And one day I hope to be on the International Space Station waving down to my parents.
At the Aerospace Corporation, creating opportunities for elementary and high school age students is essential to our mission. We recognize that someday these young minds will be leading the aerospace industry, and we want to expose them to endless career opportunities. We provide tours of our over 150 different labs, which showcase the advanced concepts, technology development, and prototyping work we do across space missions. We also bring our work into your classroom through free lesson plans and teacher resources. The CubiKit is an example of a learning experiment we created for teachers to build with their students in order to understand how satellites work. From our offices to your classrooms, sharing our knowledge and creating opportunities for the future of space is what we do best.
And so today I'm announcing that Blue Origin is founding the Club for the Future, whose mission is to inspire young people to build the future of life in space. So we're going to ask K through 12 students to send us postcards with their dreams of the future, and then we're going to send them to space in New Shepard, bring them back and mail them back to you.
Today we're loading the Club for the Future postcards into payload lockers, and those are going to be loaded into the crew capsule.
And it's this generation's job to build that road to space so that the future generations can unleash their creativity.
Now that you are officially a space nerd, we have a special message from astronaut Kjell Lindgren just for you. Take it away, Kjell.
My name is Kjell Lindgren, and I'm the commander for NASA's SpaceX Crew 4 mission to the International Space Station. I've wanted to be an astronaut for as long as I can remember, and so I charted out a path. I went to the Air Force Academy, and I ultimately did not become a pilot, but went into medicine, and yet still found a path through medicine where I could serve human spaceflight as a flight surgeon. But I still had that dream that perhaps I would get to do that job someday. It was absolutely amazing to get the call that I had been selected into the astronaut office. I was assigned to my first mission and spent 141 days living and working on the International Space Station. That truly was the realization of that lifelong dream. Of all of those things in that moment and in that mission were really, really special.
Thank you for participating in today's National Space Day program. Now that you've learned more about the work that we do in space and heard from many passionate people working in the space industry, we need to hear from you. Space jobs and the space economy are going to be even more important in your lifetime. And whether you're eager to go to Mars or you'd like to make space missions possible from the ground, we know you have big ideas about the future. So now it's time to hear from you. Why do you think space is important to your generation? And what do you hope we have done in space by 2054, when you're about 40 years old? Thanks for watching, and happy National Space Day.
It is always so cool to hear from an astronaut. Now, in order to receive your National Space Day virtual mission patch, we need to hear from you. So head over to swf2030.org to submit your ideas on the future of space. There you can also find more information and bios on all the people you heard from today.
Well, it looks like that's our show. Thank you for joining us on this National Space Day 2024, where we are launching dreams and exploring futures. Houston, we are a go for liftoff. In 3, 2, 1.